This is one of the most outrageous things I have heard in a long, long time.
In a case that has been filled with...
They tried to play Wendy Williams' story like it was some random downfall, a one-time tragedy where fame, health, and trust all crashed at once. That is what they pushed. But just weeks after Wendy's September 2025 interview with The Cut, another name started popping up in quiet conversations about legal drama, guardianship moves, and serious psychological control. People were whispering heavy, and that name was Nicki Minaj. By October, the self-proclaimed queen of rap was ringing alarms that sounded way too familiar. She pointed at hidden handlers, twisted media narratives, and powerful insiders who she claimed were trying to box her in and take her independence. This was not just celebrity gossip anymore. It started to look like something bigger, a system some believe targets outspoken, successful Black women, all dressed up as mental health protection.
Looks at Wendy and says, you know, you had a great career. Your career is over. It is never coming back. You're done. Why would a judge?
Nicki's accusations hit at a moment that made even her loudest critics stop and look twice. Just weeks before, Wendy Williams had spoken out about her court-ordered guardianship from inside the dementia care facility where she was being kept. She was reportedly paying nearly $26,000 a month just to live under someone else's control. That alone had people shook. By August, even after a clean psychological evaluation, a New York court still ruled that Wendy had to stay under full guardianship. Then October came and Nicki jumped online late at night with a string of intense posts. She claimed that Jay-Z and Roc Nation were trying to paint her as unstable. She said it was all a setup, a move to push a conservatorship on her, just like Wendy's.
Y'all, Nicki Minaj is back on X, and she's coming for Jay-Z. So in a series of tweets, Nicki Minaj is claiming that Jay-Z owes her $100 to $200 million so far.
That claim turned heads fast. We can trace the first real crack in the wall back to October 15th, when Nicki suddenly jumped on X and announced she was not dropping the album anymore. No long explanation, no soft landing, just a hard stop that had fans confused and critics loud. The very next day, she tagged Jay-Z directly and turned the heat all the way up. She accused Roc Nation of twisting public narratives and trying to use her online behavior as so-called proof of mental decline. That was not a small claim, that was a direct shot. Days later, her Instagram disappeared with zero explanation. Then she popped back up on X, posting an AI-generated image of Jay-Z in a pink wig and a queen chain. The caption read, "I am your karma." That one line split the internet in half. Supporters saw pure defiance, a woman refusing to be bullied. Critics called it erratic. But to Nicki, it was something else entirely. She believed it was proof that a larger effort to discredit her had already kicked off. Insiders close to the situation say her posts were not random rants. They described them as warnings about what she allegedly called an illegal ambush. According to those sources, she believes Roc Nation is working with certain media voices to paint her as a danger to herself and even to her marriage. That is a serious narrative to push. The Wendy Williams comparison is not random either. Wendy's guardianship began after a major bank labeled her of unsound mind and froze her accounts, citing fear of financial exploitation. Nicki has argued that a similar playbook could be forming around her, will first frame public conflict as instability, then connect finances and personal life to legal pressure. If that is true, this is bigger than music industry drama. It is about control.
That got to do with Sister Minaj.
Because there's a lot of fans online having a conversation right now following our interview if whether or not Kenneth, who's Nicki Minaj's husband, should be doing the same for Nicki Minaj because
Absolutely.
She's online and there's a lot of things that she's saying and
But that
different things that
wasn't
are
the reason
happening.
she shot a shot. I mean, was it?
No, forget me. Why did she come at Keisha? I don't understand. Like, what did anything Keisha have to say had to do?
The pressure got real in late September when court filings revealed that Nicki's Hidden Hills mansion, an 11-bedroom, 16-bathroom estate worth nearly $20 million, was placed under levy by the LA Sheriff's Department. That is not a small headline, that is a flashing red alarm. The move came from a $500,000 default judgment won by security guard Thomas Weidenmuller. He claimed there was a physical altercation involving Nicki's husband, Kenneth Petty, during a 2019 European show. The court had granted that judgment months earlier after the couple did not respond to the lawsuit. By mid-October, Weidenmuller was asking the court for permission to force the sale of the home. On October 16th, he reportedly served the demand right at Nicki's front door. That kind of move sends a message. Nicki did not stay quiet. She called the entire situation a setup. She wrote, "I have evidence that this was given to a business manager who never told me." She also claimed, "That same manager stole from me many times." Those are heavy accusations, and they added more heat to an already blazing situation. Within days, Roc Nation CEO Desiree Perez started trending online. Perez, who has a past federal case and later received a presidential pardon, is known for handling high-level artist negotiations. Nicki accused her of working with Jay-Z to shape the public story around her financial problems. That is a bold claim that raised serious eyebrows. All of this pushed a bigger question into the spotlight. In today's industry, can financial pressure be used as leverage to box in powerful celebrities and control the narrative around them?
The judge in the
The
Guardian.
judge in the guardianship read Alex Finney the Riot Act, threatened her, and said, "You're talking," making an accusation that she's talking to the media. And if you continue doing it, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you. There is a gag order in this case. I can tell you that the judge has scared a lot of people in this.
To understand why Nicki framed her situation around guardianship, you have to rewind to Wendy's ongoing ordeal. In August 2025, Wendy's lawyers confirmed she had passed an independent psychological evaluation earlier that year. That should have shifted everything, right? But it did not. Judge Sokolov still upheld the guardianship, keeping her under court control despite that clean evaluation. Wendy remains in a facility where she reportedly cannot receive incoming calls and has to ask permission just to have outside visitors. Think about that for a second. A media icon who built a career on speaking freely, now needing approval to talk to people. That reality alone feels heavy. Her longtime publicist pushed back hard, saying, "This woman doesn't miss a beat," arguing that Wendy shows no signs of cognitive decline. Even with that defense, the court insisted she stay under a legal guardian. That ruling sent a loud message. Nicki has suggested that Wendy's case created a blueprint. In her view, it showed how quickly a celebrity's money and independence can be locked down under the banner of medical concern.
Mark this tweet. Y'all really do not understand who I really am. Bring it, let's play. Y'all wanted attention, let's do it. Then she starts talking to the LAPD about something we have nothing to do with. And she's saying to Republic Records that they need to stand up for her any day now. Then she says, "You'll regret it." Now, I've been going down a rabbit hole.
Here? Why did this?
That idea, fair or not, is what fueled her fear that the same system could be turned on her next. By late October, Nicki's tone had shifted from frustration to full-blown war mode. She called out The Breakfast Club host Charlemagne the God, pointing to his long association with Jay-Z through iHeartRadio, and accused him of being part of the same machine she believes took Wendy down. That was not subtle, that was direct smoke. She also tied 4 recent police incidents to what she described as a harassment campaign. According to Nicki, there were false SWAT calls sent to her home, designed to make her look paranoid and unstable. She went public, asking the LAPD where's the evidence, and demanding answers about what she described as 4 armed raids while other family members were inside the house. That claim hit hard. The department has not publicly responded, but fans online started tracking timestamps of emergency vehicles near her neighborhood that they believe line up with her story. At the same time, her marriage became easy fuel for headlines. Kenneth Petty remains on supervised probation and recently completed a 120-day house confinement after violating federal supervision terms. To Nicki's supporters, his past has been used to shame her and chip away at her credibility. They see it as a tactic to weaken her public image and legal footing. Critics see it differently. They argue that controversy keeps circling her home life and that it signals instability. Either way, the constant drama builds a narrative that she is one heated moment away from losing control. And that kind of perception, fair or not, is exactly the atmosphere where talk of conservatorship can start to sound real.
So she feels like blogs and online platforms don't touch what she's saying, and they don't cover all of her words fully because it's Jay-Z and Roc Nation.
Well, I'll tell you this, I have no idea about their business, but if someone owed me $200 million, then I would be in court, not on X. And I guarantee you, if she ever took that to court, that would be a huge...
Insiders in LA's entertainment law circle say what is playing out looks way too close to the early stages of Wendy Williams' case. They describe a pattern: small legal issues stacking up, an unpaid judgment here, a dispute with a manager there. Each piece on its own might seem minor, but together it can paint a picture of chaos. Once that image of disarray locks into the public mind, a guardianship petition can be framed as protection instead of punishment. That is how it gets presented to a court, not as control, but as care. And once that door opens, it can stretch far beyond daily decisions. We are talking future royalties, publishing rights, estate planning, the whole empire on the table. Nicki's posts accusing Jay-Z of trying to seize her title equity, which she values at over $100 million, show she is looking at the money trail closely. In her mind, the incentive is clear. If control shifts, so does access to massive financial power. And that is not small change, that is legacy-level stakes. Meanwhile, Roc Nation has stayed completely silent. Jay-Z has not addressed the accusations, Desiree Paris has not responded either. That silence has fans zooming in on every tiny digital move, from the sudden deletion of Nicki's Instagram to the wave of negative headlines that followed. People are studying the optics like detectives, and the optics look intense.
Right? So Nicki Minaj is on X right now, and she is sounding off following our interview with Gucci Mane and Keisha Kayor, his wife, and she says, Gucci wife has been trying to be me for years, been for the spotlight for years. She's there to keep.
Nicki's next moves only poured gasoline on the fire. Her AI post mocking Jay-Z exploded across social media within hours. Then came her claim that Gucci's wife keeps him sedated, a statement that dragged mental health into the center of the storm and sparked serious debate online. She also referenced Republic Records writing, "Stand up for me," which many took as a sign that even her own label could be feeling pressure to stay silent. That raised eyebrows fast. If her accusations are exaggerated, then what we are watching could be a superstar cracking under non-stop scrutiny. That is one angle. But if she believes what she is saying, then the story shifts. It becomes about a system that answers defiance with diagnosis and disagreement with legal paperwork. That is a chilling thought. Look at the pattern people keep pointing to. Wendy Williams confined in an expensive facility despite passing an evaluation, Nicki claiming surveillance, financial sabotage, and a coordinated attempt to frame her as unstable. Two powerful women, once seen as untouchable, now surrounded by talk of instability and legal restriction. That contrast feels dramatic. And in the background, the same names keep surfacing at key moments. Roc Nation, Desiree Perez, Jay-Z. Their silence leaves room for speculation. But it is important to note that accusations are not proof. What remains tonight is not just celebrity drama, but a bigger question about motive and power.
Nicki Minaj, she went on another Twitter rant, and she still got Jay-Z and Roc Nation in every tweet. She be wilding on them. I ain't gonna lie, I ain't never seen nobody come at Jay-Z this hard.
I'm like,
If Nicki truly believes her marriage to Kenneth Petty is the last legal shield between her and a potential guardianship, then the stakes feel massive. This is no longer just a social media clash. It becomes a battle over autonomy, reputation, and control. The real question people are asking is not just who is right, but how far this conflict could go. For Nicki, Kenneth Petty has become more than just a husband. In her eyes, he is the final wall between her and a total loss of control. Every headline, every fresh allegation seems to her supporters like it is chipping away at that bond. The criticism aimed at Petty has not only focused on his criminal record or past mistakes, it has zeroed in on the fact that he shares legal ties to her estate and could potentially stand in the way of any conservatorship move. That detail changes the temperature fast. When Cardi B tweeted in October that Petty was using Nicki's card while she was sedated, it did not feel like ordinary rap beef. It read heavier than that. The implication painted him as both an exploiter and an enabler. If people believe that story, it creates an image of Nicki as someone unable to manage her own home or finances. That kind of perception can stick quick. All of this flared up just as legal pressure tightened again. The $500,000 judgment tied to the 2019 Wyden-Muller case resurfaced in September. By mid-October, court filings showed the LA Sheriff's Department had placed a levy on the couple's $20 million Hidden Hills mansion. That is not background noise, that is front-page energy. The original incident, a backstage dispute in Germany between Petty and a security guard, was years old, but the timing of renewed enforcement raised eyebrows. Supporters call it strategic. Critics call it overdue accountability. Either way, the pressure hit at a moment when Nicki was already warning that bigger forces were closing in. After years of sitting quiet, the push to sell the Hidden Hills property suddenly came back to life, right as Nicki's next album, NM6, entered its marketing phase. The timing raised eyebrows fast. In the very same week she accused Roc Nation of psychological warfare, her home was facing the threat of auction. That overlap felt loud. People started asking, is this pure coincidence or something more calculated? This pattern looks familiar to some observers. First comes financial pressure, then comes public embarrassment. That embarrassment turns into questions about stability. Those questions open the door for intervention. It is a sequence that changed Wendy Williams from daytime television powerhouse to a ward of the court. It nearly swallowed Britney Spears too. Both women were single at the time with limited legal shields around their estates. That detail matters. Nicki's situation is different in one key way: she is married. And that may explain why attention has shifted so heavily onto her spouse. Some insiders claim that if Kenneth Petty's credibility takes enough hits, the final barrier to a potential guardianship could weaken. If that happens, Nicki could face increased legal exposure from managers, advisors, or outside parties claiming concern. To supporters, this feels like a chess match with real money and freedom on the line. To critics, it is simply the fallout of years of controversy. Either way, the stakes look bigger than album sales. They look personal and legal at the same time.
That was fair commentary, but Nicki Minaj thought otherwise. Now, Lauren LaRosa, LL Cool J, read what she tweeted about the Breakfast Club.
She said, Charlamagne, did you put that bleaching cream on your too?
Did you?
She then tagged the President of the United States and asked him to lock us all up. Imagine if you called yourself...
While courts and tabloids stayed locked in on the Manchin levy, another battle was playing out in full view. On October 15th, Nicki publicly accused Jay-Z of owing her up to $200 million tied to her original equity in the streaming platform Tidal. That is not pocket change, that is empire money. She argued her stake had been undervalued and that she received only a fraction of what she was promised. The same day, she made it clear she was fed up. She threatened to cancel NM6 completely, writing that she was done with music and telling Jay-Z, "Hope you're happy now." That line hit like a mic drop. The energy was not simple burnout. It felt like open rebellion. If her claims hold weight, shelving new music could cut off a major revenue stream connected to distribution and touring deals. That move would not just be emotional, it would be strategic. In that sense, Nicki was not only fighting for personal autonomy, she was, in her own way, squeezing the money flow tied to the people she believes are trying to box her in. That is a power move if intentional. Her next post pushed the divide even deeper. They came begging for a tour and album, and I said no, she wrote, openly mocking what she described as corporate desperation. She framed their outreach as fake peace offerings, suggesting the real goal was leverage. In her view, it was about getting her back under contract, tying her up in paperwork, and restoring influence over her career decisions. Each public refusal seemed to spark a fresh wave of negative coverage. Talk show hosts began questioning her mental state. Gossip outlets cited unnamed sources expressing concern. Industry voices warned that NM6 might be cursed. The optics felt familiar to observers who have seen reputations shift before legal actions ever surface. Whether coincidence or consequence, the pattern shows how quickly public perception can turn. And once that narrative locks in, it becomes powerful all on its own. Now we are at a crossroads that feels bigger than one artist, one lawsuit, or one company. The tension around Nicki is no longer just about tweets or industry gossip. It is about power, image, and who gets to define stability in public. Every move she makes is dissected. Every silence from the other side is analyzed. The atmosphere feels charged. Supporters argue that what we are watching is a calculated squeeze, legal pressure on the home, questions about her marriage, old business deals dragged back into the spotlight. A slow build meant to frame independence as instability. In that reading, the strategy is simple: isolate, discredit, then step in under the language of protection. That possibility is what has her fan base on high alert. Critics see something else. They see a superstar reacting publicly to private disputes. They see social media escalation, risky statements, and high-stakes business disagreements spilling into the open. In their view, the chaos is self-created, not coordinated. That side of the argument is just as loud. But here's what makes this moment explosive. Once the idea of guardianship or conservatorship enters the conversation, it changes everything. It shifts the fight from reputation to rights, from headlines to legal authority. That is not small drama, that is life-altering territory. Nicki has made it clear she believes she is being targeted. Roc Nation has not publicly answered the claims. The courts continue handling the financial disputes on record, and the public is left watching a standoff that feels tense from every angle. What happens next will not just shape an album rollout, it could shape legacy, ownership, and control. And in an industry where perception can become reality overnight, that is a battle no one can afford to lose.
All those accolades, all that success, and still manages to come off as miserable. Like, how do you beef with everybody? Lil' Kim, Remy Ma, Cardi, Megan Thee Stallion, Lotto, Mariah Carey. Like, that's not a pink print. That's a stink print. Okay, Nicki energy just comes off as nasty and stink. That's what y'all should be called. It's a
And behind all the noise, the numbers tell a story that hits different. Court documents show the Hidden Hills mansion carries a $13 million mortgage with roughly $6 million in equity. That is more than enough to cover the $500,000 judgment and still leave millions on the table. So the math does not scream desperation. It raises questions. The creditor's lawyer even pointed out that Nicki's reported net worth exceeds $150 million, suggesting she has the ability to settle the debt outright. If that is the case, then why push so hard to force the sale of her home? That is the part that has skeptics talking. To them, it feels less like routine debt collection and more like a public spectacle, a pressure tactic, a statement move. Critics argue it is simply how enforcement works when judgments go unpaid. Supporters see something colder. They see a message being sent that no matter how global or wealthy you are, you can still be cornered if you clash with powerful networks. That perception alone adds heat. By late October, Nicki's defiance became symbolic. She told fans she could flip the industry again without corporate backing. She spoke about documentaries, audiobooks, and fully independent releases, plans designed to bypass the traditional gatekeepers completely. That kind of talk is not just creative freedom, it is a power shift. And power shifts always make somebody nervous. The message from Nicki was loud and clear. She does not trust the system she once helped fund and build. That realization feels heavy. In the music business, going fully independent sounds empowering, but it can also be risky. Some former managers have quietly said that large entities rarely forget when an artist walks away from a contract. In their view, the fallout usually comes one of two ways. Either the artist gets branded as unstable, or they slowly disappear from playlists and radio rotations. That is a cold game. If Nicki's fears are valid, then every heated post, every late-night rant could one day be reframed as proof that she needs professional supervision. That possibility alone raises the stakes. Words online can turn into paperwork later. She has not backed down, even when critics like Charlemagne the God labeled her behavior stank and nasty. She fired back by pointing to his connections to Jay-Z. "He was around Wendy before her life went to hell," she wrote. That statement implied a shared circle of influence behind both situations. Whether that link is coincidence or something deeper, it sparked debate instantly. The parallel makes people uneasy. Wendy confined in a controlled setting despite passing a mental evaluation. Nicki facing growing narratives that paint her as erratic, both outspoken, both financially powerful, both surrounded by corporate silence. That pattern, real or perceived, is what keeps this story burning hot.
I was spoken to her, and she's always wanted me to spend her money.
Now the spotlight is brighter than ever, and the pressure feels suffocating. Nicki stands at a point where every move carries weight. Drop the album and critics will say she folded. Delay it again and they will scream instability. Speak out and she is labeled reckless. Stay silent and they will say the system won. That is a tight corner for any artist, let alone one with a global brand. What makes this moment explosive is not just the money or the music. It is the battle over narrative control. Once the public starts questioning someone's mental stability, that label can follow them into courtrooms, boardrooms, and contract negotiations. It becomes bigger than gossip. It becomes leverage. Supporters argue she is fighting back the only way she knows how, loudly and without filters. They believe she sees patterns forming and is calling them out before paperwork hits the table. Critics argue that constant escalation only feeds the very narrative she fears. That tension keeps the story spinning fast. There is also the larger cultural layer. When powerful women challenge industry giants, the backlash often comes dressed as concern about behavior, concern about stress, concern about decision-making. On paper, it looks protective. In practice, it can limit autonomy. That is the debate sitting underneath all of this. At this stage, no court has declared her incompetent. No conservatorship has been filed. Those facts matter. But the conversation alone shows how quickly perception can shift when fame, money, and power collide. Whether this ends in reconciliation, independence, or a deeper legal fight, one thing is clear. This is not just about an album cycle anymore. It is about control, reputation, and who gets to decide when a star is stable enough to run her own empire. The bigger question now is simple but heavy. What happens if NM6 really drops in March 2026? That release could relight her entire empire and remind everyone why she runs the throne. Or it could become the final act before serious legal containment enters the conversation. That is the tension hanging over everything right now. Industry watchers are already predicting more leaks, more lawsuits, and more attempts to chip away at her image before the album ever sees daylight. At the same time, her supporters treat every post like a coded warning. They believe a larger showdown is building between one artist and the machine that once celebrated her. That angle has people locked in. And here we are, standing at the edge of a story with more questions than answers. Is Nicki Minaj exposing a real pattern of industry control? Or is she spiraling toward the exact outcome she says she fears? That debate is split straight down the middle. Will Kenneth Petty stay her shield? Or could the pressure around him open the exact legal door she has been warning about? Every headline feels like a chess move. Every court filing feels strategic. And if Nicki is right, this next chapter will not just reshape her career, it could challenge how the industry handles power, money, and outspoken voices it cannot easily manage. Now we want to hear from you. Is this paranoia or prophecy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs the full breakdown. Turn on notifications so you do not miss what happens next. We will be watching every move. See you on the next one.